discuss strategies for learning a foreign language. First of all, I'd like to take a big picture. Learn a foreign language, regardless if it's Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Russian, German, is going to be a valuable and marketable asset on your resume. There's no question about that. And secondly, we want to talk about principles of learning a foreign language, and these are going to be very important so you can get an idea of how you learn and you can actually manipulate this process of learning. First of all, the first principle is we can't learn for you. In other words, don't blame your teacher. But what we need to know in terms of learning is if we understand the process of learning, then we can use that for our own purposes. For example, I want to look at learning from two perspectives. Micro, which would be learner-centered, that's you, and macro, which would be more programmatic, or the sequence of courses that you take in Spanish. How do you learn? Well, typically you get some information and you study it, and then you're probably told to reproduce it. But that's not all. Let me give an example. Student A has to, let's say, study the past tense verbs in Spanish. Student A doesn't have much time to prepare to study, so he comes to the classroom a little bit unprepared. Student B takes a little time. Yes, I'm going to go over these pages, and then he or she has some engagement and leaves. And student 3 takes some time, puts in a lot of cognitive effort, he learns or she learns that those verbs very well, and she goes or he goes to the classroom. So in the classroom, the teacher asks student A in Spanish, "What did you do last night?" And student A says, "Huh?" Because student A has nothing in his brain to activate. Student B, on the other hand, did some studying and can say, "Well, last night," in Spanish, "last night I studied," and it will take some time. So what you can see there is that student B does have some type of knowledge in his brain, is trying to access it, but it's not there. It's not very accessible. Then the teacher goes to student 3, the model student, says, "What did you do last night?" And the student said, "Well, last night I went to the supermarket and I bought some vegetable, and then I returned home." And right away we have 3 types of responses based on how the information was learned the night before. So in other words, what I'm saying is when you learn something for the first time, you take your time, you study it very well, you make sure that your knowledge is robust, and then you build on that. In other words, learning is like building a house. You can build your house on sand, or you can build your house on solid rock or solid land. And let's say it's a beach house, and the waves come in. Guess which house is going to collapse? So if you look at it that way, it's very important that you put a lot of cognitive effort in the first time you study a new information. The reason being is that when you do that, you are building a relatively robust level of knowledge. And it's that knowledge that you activate in the classroom to be able to understand and also to retain your prior knowledge. Now imagine that you learn something and then you practice it over and over again. You can learn a lot. And you can also reinforce your prior knowledge by accessing that information so fast it helps you with your fluency. Whether you're writing a composition, getting your verbs, or just using the language for communicative purposes. Let me give